Mr. Gavin Barwell.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to deliver my maiden speech as the new Member of Parliament for Croydon Central. Can I congratulate the Honourable Member for Arfon on his contribution to the debate, and in particular my honourable friend, the Member for Bristol North West, who's just left the Chamber, on her maiden speech. I know how hard she's worked to get to this place. It's traditional, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to start a maiden speech by paying tribute to one's predecessor. And despite the fact that my predecessor was an opponent in the recent election, I have absolutely no hesitation in doing so. Andrew Pelling was elected to this House in 2005 as a Conservative, though for the last 2.5 years he sat in as an Independent. During his time here, he experienced a number of difficulties in his personal life, but despite these difficulties, he was regarded in the constituency as an excellent local MP. In addition to his service in this House, he served both the people of Croydon and the Conservative Party as a local councillor for over 20 years and as a member of the Greater London Assembly for 8 years. He was one of the people who encouraged me to get involved in local politics. I wish him well in whatever he chooses to do in the future and hope that his contribution to public life is not at an end. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is a great honour to represent Croydon, which has been my home since I was a few months old and is where my wife and I have chosen to bring up our children. There is no getting away from the fact that Croydon has an image problem, a reputation for rather unwelcoming 1960s architecture and for crime and antisocial behaviour. It's certainly true that the town centre is in need of regeneration, which our Conservative Council and its excellent Chief Executive, John Rouse, a former Chief Executive of the Commission for Architecture and the Built Environment, have ambitious plans to deliver as the economy emerges from recession. It's also true that crime is my constituents' #1 concern, though it is lower than in many other London boroughs, and the town centre in particular is safer than it was a few years ago, thanks to the efforts of our local police, led by Borough Commander Adrian Roberts. But these two problems aside, Croydon has so much going for it. Historically, it was a market town in Surrey, situated in a valley between the Crystal Palace Escarpment and the North Downs, just north of a gap in the Downs, and therefore on the natural route from London to the south coast. The Archbishop of Canterbury had his summer residence in the town. Some of the original buildings survive and today form part of Old Palace School. The arrival of the railways, first the Surrey-Arne Railway between Croydon and Wandsworth in 1803, then connections to London in 1839 and Brighton in 1841, led to a 23-fold increase in Croydon's population between 1801 and 1901. And as Croydon grew north, London grew south, and by the outbreak of the Great War, it had become part of the London metropolitan area. Further change came after the Second World War, with the Croydon Corporation Act of 1957, coupled with government incentives for office relocation out of central London, leading to almost 500,000 square metres of office space being built or given permission in just 7 years, much of it in multi-storey blocks, plus an underpass and a flyover that transformed the town from a market town to a mini Manhattan. Today, Croydon is a city in all but name, a major commercial and retail centre, the largest metropolitan area in Western Europe without city status. But it is also part of London, the world's greatest city. It has excellent transport links, a 24-hour rail service to central London, to Gatwick Airport and to the south coast, Croydon Tramlink, London's only local tramway, and the East London Line extension to West Croydon, which opened just over a week ago and has finally put Croydon on the tube map. As a result, Croydon residents can be in central London in just over 15 minutes, while living on the edge of the beautiful countryside of the North Downs and not having to pay through the nose for housing. But Croydon's greatest asset is undoubtedly its people, many of whom have come from all over the world to make it their home, setting up new businesses, working in our public services, contributing to the town's thriving voluntary sector and enriching its culture, making it a vibrant cosmopolitan place to live. The real Croydon then is a mix of ancient and modern, city and countryside, long established and newly arrived. Like many suburbs, Croydon is not without its problems, but it is a great place to live. I'm grateful, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to make my maiden speech in this debate for 3 reasons. First, as a parent of 3 young boys who I expect are watching at the moment, and the chairman of governors at a local secondary school, education is an issue in which I have a personal interest. Second, it's also a key issue in my constituency, particularly in relation to secondary school standards, which I'll come on to in a second. But most importantly, if we want to lift people out of poverty, if we want to increase social mobility in our country, education, and not the ever more complicated tax and benefit system favoured by the previous government is surely the key to doing it, as the Honourable Member for Luton North recognised. Of course, it's important that young people leave school, college or university with the qualifications they need to get a job. But education is about much more than exam results. It's about inspiring children, about raising their aspirations, about giving them the confidence that if they work hard, they can fulfil their dreams. Mr. Deputy Speaker, given the time, there is just one issue that I wish to raise in particular, and that is, as I said, standards in secondary schools. My constituency is lucky to have some excellent state faith schools. Coloma Convent, a Roman Catholic school for girls, and Archbishop Tennyson's a co-ed Church of England school, both delivering excellent results on limited budgets, thanks to outstanding leadership by Maureen Martin and Richard Parish, respectively. We also have some excellent independent secondary schools, the Islamic Al-Khair School and Trinity and Old Palace, which are part of the foundation established over 400 years ago by Archbishop Whitgift, of which I should declare an interest as a governor. But until recently, parents who weren't practicing Christians and didn't wish or weren't able to go independent had to accept places at schools where standards weren't high enough or send their children miles away to Bromley, to Surrey or Sutton. Thankfully, a couple of years ago, our Conservative Council took action to address the problem, replacing low-performing schools with new academies and putting in place plans to expand popular schools. Some of those plans are dependent on building schools for the future funding, and therefore I was very grateful for the Secretary of State's positive comments in that regard earlier in the debate. But unfortunately, not all councils are as progressive as mine. Too many turn a blind eye to low performance rather than take the tough decisions necessary to turn things round. That's why it is so welcome that the Coalition is proposing removing local councils' monopoly and allowing parents, teachers, charities and local communities to set up new schools. Each year, thousands of parents are told that the inn is full, that there isn't a place at any of the schools where they want to send their children, that they either have to send them to a school they didn't choose or educate them at home. The policy that my right honourable friend has championed with such passion will provide another option to those parents, and the knowledge that a new school could open if enough local parents are dissatisfied will put pressure on low-performing schools right across the country to raise their game. Mr. Speaker, the right honourable member for Morley and Outwood was concerned that the proposals in the speech will create a two-tier system. The reality is surely that the current system of catchment areas, coupled with local authority monopoly of supply, allows well-off parents to move into the catchment areas of good schools and leaves the less well-off with little or no choice. It demonstrably does not ensure that everybody gets an equal education. The previous government believed that a top-down approach was the best way to drive up standards. I believe a bottom-up approach based on parent and pupil choice is far more likely to be successful. That is what my constituents want, and I look forward to supporting these measures when they come before the House. Thank you.
Dr. Roberta Blackman-Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to begin by congratulating the Honourable Gentleman, the Member for Croydon Central, on his maiden speech. It was extremely informative and not only outlined the needs of his constituents and constituency, but also its attractions